Look, we're live now, so hopefully the audio is okay. We had an issue earlier. Today, we're going to be talking about a very specific topic, and that is how to get, I should say that how to become a Section 8 landlord or how to become a HUD landlord. It's a topic that's widely covered on YouTube. I think that there's a lot of people making particular videos. But in this video, I think we want to focus on some of the facts. The reality of it is our company, Section8Consulting.com, works with big landlords, anywhere from 200, 300, 500 units. We have a current portfolio with around 200 landlords. And if we valued all those properties, we'd be around $100 million. Of course, I don't own those buildings. I'd love to. So these buildings and landlords are all over the contentious U.S., about 38 states. Now, when you look at a lot of different landlords in the videos we see, a lot of this stuff is from landlords that have a few houses here and there, maybe up to 10 or 20. And I think that a lot of times we get a view or an education from these folks making these videos that are more of an opinion than it is reality. When you're dealing with 10,000 plus units, you have a lot of experience dealing with this. So one thing I want to do is get out of the way is, a lot of you want to know how to do the Section 8 applications. So what I've provided is a link in the description. This is going to be the 7 of 22 HAP contract. A lot of you guys don't have that, don't even know how to get it. So I've provided that, and I'm going to provide it. It looks like for some reason I can't add it in the chat, so I'll put it in the description. So when you scroll down into that description, you should be able to pull it. It's a 14-page form and quite explanatory. The next video I make is going to be answering all those questions about the application process. Now, another thing I want to talk about is, when it comes to Section 8 landlords, there's a lot of different things that you guys have questions about. One of the things that our company does is we address all those questions in a form of professional advice and casework. We help you with landlord packets, negotiating with housing authorities, and getting incentives. As an example, housing authorities can offer incentives anywhere from a few dollars up to $5,000. If you have a building with 20 people and you're able to interview them and review their applications, and if they sign that lease for 12 months, then within probably 30 to 60 days, you will get a check from the housing authority that could be anywhere from a few dollars to $5,000 per tenant. For some landlords, I know one landlord in particular, his opening day, he made $1.5 million. Okay, very serious. So you think to yourself, well, you talk about incentives, and I'm going to make a video specifically about that. But you think about these incentives. Why aren't they published? Why don't they put them out there on the wall and this and that? Well, what you don't know is what they expect, and a lot of you guys are unapprised of all the different things you can get. We'll make a video about incentives, and we're going to go deeply into that. There's around 38 different types, and it can put you in a very good position. Another thing, as a Section 8 landlord, you want to focus on your business credentials. Though there's not a great amount of requirement in order to become a Section 8 landlord, it does vastly differentiate depending on where you are in this nation. Going back to these videos, you see these guys, they're house flippers and all these different things, and they get 20 houses, and now they're an expert at being a Section 8 landlord. But the reality is, the only thing they're an expert of is their neighborhood and the few homes that they own. A lot of these videos I've seen already, I would say that basically these are just opinions, and you don't know if these landlords that make these videos on YouTube, if they're actually even practicing with their federal law, federal code, discrimination, other issues. I find that a lot of this stuff is flying by the seat of your pants and making a quick nickel on the YouTube. It takes a lot of experience dealing with this in order to understand it correctly and to prevent a lot of issues. So one thing I want to say, if you're considering becoming a landlord, you can absolutely make money doing so. I've had a lot of landlords come into it. They want proof of concept. We provide proof of concept. We educate and work with landlords. We work them through all the contracts. We even work with them at a level to where we're interviewing. Most of you don't realize this, but about around 30, 40 different types of attachments to them, and the type of voucher you accept, the type of client, incomes, whether or not you're doing research on your area to see whether or not the rent reasonableness or area rents would be reasonable for you to purchase the property. So there's other research in that area to see whether or not it's going to give you a good ROI, a return on investment. So these are some of the things you have to consider. Moving on from that, of course, that through your HAP contract, you're going to have to deal with your taxpayer identification number. So most of you know what that is. You have your LLC, you have your EIN. For those that are your sole proprietors, then your tax structure is probably set up as a sole proprietor rather than a limited liability company or corporation, direct deposit on a business account, or possibly a private if you're sole proprietor. Moving on from that, you need to have a fine understanding of your HAP contract. I provided the federal links to that in the very newest HAP contracts. Those HAP contracts will differentiate from every housing authority in America. So if we have 5,000 counties and each county can have multiple housing authorities, you're talking about thousands of possibilities. One HAP contract does not suit all situations and counties. Again, going back to people giving advice and making videos about this subject matter. These videos, a lot of them that have been out there that I've been reading through, the reality of those videos are that their experience is limited to their neighborhood. They're not like a company where I'm addressing clients in all 50 states and landlords in 38. That's a broad level of experience to have. Speaking concisely on just dealing with one zip code where you have 11 houses is not sufficient to have a fine understanding of this process. Moving on from that, a lot of housing authorities, you can set up a management agreement. And of course, with experience, you would want to have tenancy addendums or an addendum built into your lease. Addendums are definitely things that are problems. Interestingly enough, addendums play an important role in some cities more than others. Over time, as you deal as a landlord, you deal with different cities, the different types of vouchers and clients, you start to see certain types of habits that play out. Since I deal with a broad number of cities and states, I have pretty much compiled a master list of addendums that will protect you as a landlord against all the nefarious activity and the stuff that shouldn't. But the reality of it is, addendums really are just really good for people that don't have a great deal of experience with this, because if you had done your due diligence and obligation as a landlord to apprise yourself of state rights, federal rights, county rights, federal regulation, HAP contract, and all the other managing agreements that could be involved in this, then that means that you would have been able to successfully screen clients. To be frank with you, a lot of my big landlords that are anywhere from 1,000 units to 10,000 units, they choose to hire somebody like me as an intervention or a process to intervene in the application process to approve or deny clients based on fair housing laws. So that goes into another arena of information of fair housing laws and discrimination, that we're treating clients fairly, interviewing, and we're not basing our judgment on age, type of voucher, and other issues that can be related to this. People that have vouchers may be low income, but they are not stupid. And a number of them are well apprised of their rights, even if it's only in one segmented area. And so you better know as much as at least the people that you're leasing to. There are lots of former attorneys that now have retired and living in Section 8. You mess with the wrong one, and you're going to be on 3rd Street wishing you hadn't, okay? Moving on from that, we talk about the HAP contract, HAP. One of the other issues you would want to prepare for, and I'm going to make a video specifically related to housing quality inspection. For the term of this video, we'd like to call that an HQS. HQSs can be self-approved during pandemic in some cases, and in most cases, they're going to have a worker come out and give you a quality inspection. The degree of the inspection is going to change from nearly every housing authority. That's why I'm making definitive videos about a specific city and town, or taking advice from some lonely landlord that's made 8 videos and believes functionally that he's an expert. He's only an expert for his zip code. So the reality of it is, housing quality inspections, you'd want to have a broad list on that. Also requesting those lists and making sure you're prepared. Your HQS can also determine how high or low your rents go, and you have the ability to negotiate with landlords, possibly up to 20% over market, depending on whether or not you have amenities in there that actually give greater value, and whether or not you've actually paid for an inspection from a legitimately licensed inspector, which would leave little room for the housing authority to counter you. So, here we are 10 minutes later, and I'm still talking, and you're still learning, right? There's a lot involved if you really want to know. Or you can watch that video for 3 tips and tricks on how to be a landlord, okay? Or you can listen to one of these guys that flip houses, where they're in business for 2 years and then they're out there selling lemonade on the corner another year after that. Let's be careful you take advice from. Rent reasonableness. So again, market research on market rents and how much property. So you're out there, you're considering an investment in buying properties. So it's more than just learning how to fill in applications and be a Section 8 landlord. You can be much better at this, and there's greater financial incentive the further and the more that you know. That rent reasonableness, and as you're looking at that, is the housing authority that you're going to deal with. You're buying a property in a specific zip code. It deals with a specific housing authority that has specific rent reasonableness for the area or market rate rents. Is your investment, are you going to get the proper return on investment? Is a 3-bedroom going to give you more value, or would you lose value having a 1-1 or 2-2? The size of the property, where it's located, whether or not the housing authority is going to offer you enough money to get your return on investment quickly over a year or two, whether or not you have incentives built in there. And a lot of you guys are sorely mistaken by buying these houses with the yards all the time. That's why I'm always amused at house flippers making videos, because the reality of their method of buying crack houses and then putting lipstick on a pig and owning 20 of them is a terrible idea. You might think, oh, that's an investment property, I'm going to make money. Look, there's simpler ways to do this where you could potentially get the maximum rent reasonableness or area market rents without doing all that nonsense and then taking on the liability. Houses are probably the worst way to do this. Moving on, talk about tenant eligibility and rent procedures, which all housing authorities have. You need to be adequately armed with the proper policies when it comes to that, okay? You guys often jump into this, you get desperate, you lease to the first person that has a good hard luck story and you believe it. It's the job of a voucher holder essentially to tell you whatever is necessary to get you to accept that voucher. And a lot of you guys are going out and you're investing and you barely have the money to do it. You're barely making the money to cover your mortgage. You get desperate. And let me tell you, there are wolves out here that are in sheep's clothing. These are people with vouchers that roll around and they screw one landlord to the next. Now, the people I see that burn up my channel and the videos and say, oh, it's the worst tenant ever. No, man, really, you're just the worst landlord ever, because you don't even know a portion of what I've already described. And to be frank with you guys, we're down a little bit, probably 10 or 15 minutes in. The reality of it is I've only talked about 5% of what I know in relation to this. There are so many ways to save yourself. Beyond that, we have family obligation agreements. You're fine. You need to also have a really good understanding of vouchers and the types there are and the types of tenants that you want to have. Not everybody's going to be old in a wheelchair and disabled, and so those vouchers could range anywhere from a housing choice voucher to a mainstream voucher. It could be a Section 202, BAWA, HOPWA, BASH, and I can keep going to nearly 100. Not all vouchers are created equal. Some of them don't pay, and some vouchers have a high propensity for particular clients that may have use of drugs and alcohol and other issues. And so it is a red flag the minute that somebody's packing one of those around that you should have done your due diligence. Not understanding the process and how the vouchers work and what they are is the first clue that you're fixing to do a really bad job of being a landlord. Moving on from that, understanding your request for tenancy or RFTA and having an RFTA packet from the client to see what the number of bedrooms and the rent is there. So just because you have a house that is a reasonable rent and the land and the housing authority is going to pay your payment, well, you accept the voucher that doesn't cover it, then you've lost again. So payment standards is something you should always be requesting, building a relationship with the director of services or the CEO of a housing authority. If you're gun shy, hire a company like myself. You can get a hell of a lot more out of a housing authority than you will just rolling up there asking them, well, how do I become a landlord? And can you give me a piece of paper to teach me? You don't want to be both the victim and the landlord at the same time, and you certainly don't want to subjugate yourself to the housing authority. You should be able to go in there and negotiate or have someone negotiate on your behalf. You don't look like a fool. Moving on from that, you need to also have a very clear house understanding of discrimination. That is a subsection of all things. You guys try to run, you think you're going to run this and accept vouchers like you did with market rate people. Market rate means no voucher, they have a job, they pay you. You cannot operate and accept vouchers running these Section 8 properties same way that you would have with people, normal people, okay? One, there are a lot of federal protections these people have with these vouchers and the same games and other things you're doing when you want people to leave, scare tactics, evictions, discrimination, bigotry, and these other issues that a lot of landlords have are not going to play out well for you. And in fact, you could end up in a very serious situation, and you yourself would have violated the standard and half contract there. So you really need to be fully apprised of everything. And getting a pamphlet off of a wooden desk at the front lobby of a housing authority ain't going to get it. Watching videos from housing flippers and these other people that think they've got a grasp on thing, that's only going to help you if you live next to them and you live in their zip code, because they're limited to their advice and their personal bias. I see it very clearly in a lot of these videos. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to beat up these other YouTube creators. I understand that you have to make nickels and pennies to get by, but the reality of it is, I know when advice is garbage, and a lot of this stuff is not factually based. And so I'm trying to give you a factual basis, which you can make an informed decision. Last thing I'm going to say before I go on and make some other videos for you guys is simply this. I have posted links to our company and our website, our business documentation. I would advise getting a consultant to work with you to teach you. It's a lot quicker than you roaming around the halls of YouTube, and it's a lot easier than trying to figure out whether or not somebody is trying to sell you rainbows and unicorns through their little videos. There are a lot of people. One day they're an expert at fidget spinners, and the next day they're the master expert of being a Section 8 landlord, and so you get yourself in trouble with that. Also, we have our posted reviews, service reviews, our YouTube channel. I think I got 21 years in the industry, another close to 10 years on YouTube. I've definitely made more videos than the HUD itself, and I've consulted probably between 700 to 1,000 people that are tenants, in addition to about anywhere, and it ranges from around 38 landlords up to 200 in a single year. As a matter of suggestion, I would say that on average, as a standard, if you are a landlord with one or two properties where you're just trying to fill it, I would suggest book casework or assistance for about a week. If you have a number of properties, then you may want to consider 3 weeks or more. And for landlords that are doing 100 units to 500 units, you may effectually need my services over several months. Most come to a conclusion in 90 days. So that's where I think that's where I'm going to stop for now. It's trying to give you guys a good perspective. Again, if you want somebody to sugarcoat shit or simply give you their personal biases, there's lots of videos for that. We need to stay factually based. That way, it's fair for both the tenant and the landlord. And if you're unapprised of these things and you're just wandering around and getting these things just from whoever, words say, Facebook groups, that's really just a terrible idea, because it's going to make it a miserable situation for you as a landlord and also the tenant. And to be frank, a lot of you guys are leaving them like 90% of what's on the table because you're unaware of the different things you can do to improve your return on investment. you're making bad decisions about where you're investing, how you're dealing with the housing authority, trying to get incentives, and you're acting out of a lot of desperation when you're accepting people without understanding the consequences of specific types of people and their vouchers. So I've enjoyed talking with you. I think our next video will be talking a little bit more. I'm going to show you the actual HOP contract. We'll go through a Q&A for that, and then I'm going to move through succession of different videos to cover these things in more detail for those of you that are DIY that prefer to learn on your own. If you don't, then I would suggest, getting with somebody that understands this at a professional level. That way you save yourself a lot of heartache and grief. Just save yourself a lot of heartache, okay? So I've enjoyed talking with you today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, and our information is listed in the description. Thank you. Have a great day.